Hey guys, welcome back to Resistance Chicks. We're your hosts, Leah and Michelle. Today is the 11th of October, 2019. Do you know what last night was?
The most epic Trump rally in the history of Trump rally, funded entirely by the Russians.
I could not stop laughing. There were like several times where I stood up like I was watching a sports game. Like
I almost peed in my pants. I couldn't believe it. Michelle was sitting there. She's like, Leah, you're not watching. Watch this rally. Tucker told us to watch this rally. We're watching this rally.
She was like, okay, we'll let it play in the background. You were doing research
they're
or whatever.
all a little bit the same. Michelle was all like, I can do this here. I'm going to do this. Okay, we're going to talk about Hillary. Remember, you said you could beat me again if you ran, but you didn't beat me the first time.
When I said it.
I know. And then here we go. We're going to go into the job and the unemployment and the thing. But that's not what he did, dude. It was like all the top news cycles.
But it was
my
pure
favorite
comedy. It was just pure.
My favorite is a Strocky,
and
the
we're
Peter,
gonna play that.
and Lisa, and the Lovebirds, and oh my gosh, I was just dying. I was dying. The whole thing was, I could not stop listening. I couldn't get my eyes off of the screen. He was
acting like he was like an actor the entire time. Like he kept impersonating people. And I can't. So we're actually going to go right to the Peter and
Well, we were
Lisa
going to.
thing.
Well, okay,
no,
wait.
Let me wait.
Let me just kind of tell everybody what's going to be in the show today.
Okay, fine. Lynette does that.
All right. So what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about these blackouts in California right now. The PG&E are doing rolling blackouts in California, and we talked about how, like, if you want to cause mass hysteria, this is the way to do it.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the same night of the Trump rally, the DNC with CNN held this really weird LGBTQ town hall, and it went like off the rails. Like if you rails and off. Okay? We are going to talk about Trump pulling the last 50 to 100 troops out of
Syria.
Northern Syria. We still have troops in Syria, which is everybody's so crazy. Oh no, we did in Syria. There still are troops in Syria. But this Northern Syria, and we're going to talk about that. I'm going to show you why this is a really good thing. Because from the right and the left, you might think that it might not be so
Even
good.
watching Fox News, you might think you will hear, right. You'll hear both sides on Fox News, but by and large, you're going to hear.
And rolling into the Trump rally, after all the epic things, we're going to show you the crazy protesters on the outside. A little bit of a backstory on the Trump rally. You're going to see him bring up the police officers with these red shirts that say "Cops for Trump," and the mayor of Minneapolis told the cops that they couldn't wear their uniforms.
Unacceptable. We have dogs here.
But they could for
go get. There's toys right there.
They could for Obama.
Right.
So they had these shirts made, "Cops for Trump." All right. So let's go into this epic Trump rally. You got stuff up. I'm gonna make sure I have mine coming up.
All right, you guys aren't ready for this.
I wasn't.
I was not ready for this.
Put your seatbelt on.
Yeah, buckle up, baby.
Months earlier, Peter struck. Remember, he and his lover, Lisa Page, Water Group.
Nobody's ready for this.
She's going to win. 10 million to 1. She's going to win. I'm telling you, Peter. I'm telling you, Peter, she's going to win. Peter, oh, I love you so much. I love you, Peter. I love you too, Lisa. Lisa, I love you. Lisa. Oh, God, I love you, Lisa. And if she doesn't win, Lisa, we've got an insurance policy, Lisa. We'll get that son of a bitch out. We got an insurance policy. And we're living through the insurance policy. That's what it is.
Yep.
The phony Russia hoax. Lisa, I love you. Now, the do-nothing Democrat con artists and scammers are getting desperate. 13 months, I got to move fast because they're not beating us at the polls, and they know it, despite the phony polls that you see all the time. They're phony polls. You know, polls are no different. Remember, I always used to talk about polls? I know polls very well. Polls are no different than crooked writers. They're crooked polls. They're crooked polls.
All right, so tell me that you did not think that that was the most, you know, and here's the deal. You could tell that that was written into his teleprompter, and that's why I said he was acting. It was beautiful. Like, he's really, really good at this because that was written, and he just, like, went with it. Like, I love you, Peter. I love you, Peter. I love you, Lisa. I mean, it was just, I don't think I could do it the way that he did it. It was so great. It was so great. Thank you, Mr. President. I literally said to Leah at some point in this, I said, can he be my president forever?
Well, I think we might have that in 16
And
years.
at one point he did say 16 more years. I literally, on my own personal Facebook page, and I should have been doing it on Resistance Chicks, but I just kept, like, putting out these hashtags of these one-line zingers. And it was so, so hilarious.
All right, so we're going to go now to the cops for Trump here.
Okay.
Oh, we got decent volume.
It's as loud as I don't know this one.
And it's the issue of law enforcement. And when I saw this man, this great gentleman on television, pouring out his guts, pouring out his heart, I don't know him. He knows I've been good to law enforcement. He knows I've been good to, as my father would say, the police. He knows I love the cops. He knows that. And so does everyone else. I mean, so many shirts, so many red shirts, and there are plenty of people here without the red shirts. And I want to just tell you, the respect that we have for law enforcement is unbound. It's unbound. Come up here, Bob, come up.
So these are, I believe these are the Minnesota police that wanted to show up and support Trump. Minnesota has always been staunchly blue, meaning Democrat,
and Trump's
because of the unions. Now, did you know that Trump only lost Minnesota by 45,000 votes? By 45,000 votes. And so I think he's going to get some of those. He's definitely going to get some of those votes. Those people are not going to vote for socialism. And he's doing a number for the miners, especially in northern Minnesota. This is funny. Say something.
What can I say after that? Tune in, Fox, 10:15 tonight. Shannon Bream, they asked us on. How can you thank this guy for everything he's done for law enforcement? Wonderful president.
Thank you, fellas. Thank you very much. Thank you. Great people. Thank you.
We're almost like, they're like, we're not going to stay up here very long. That's fine.
What a group.
You know, what he talked about with the polls, by the way, there's a Fox News poll that said that more people are favoring impeachment than before, because they're listening to, you know, Chris Wallace and Shepard Smith, who's out at Fox News today. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But that particular poll that came out from Fox News sampled 48% Democrats, 40% Republicans, and 12% independents.
Okay.
So they do oversample on the Democrats. Now some people say that Democrats are over. There's more people that self-identify as Democrat than Republican, but The way they do the polls, they don't account for the Electoral College.
I know. Well, and Trump actually talked about that yesterday in his speech. He was like, listen, I campaigned. It would have been easy to go for the popular vote. I didn't campaign for the popular vote because that's not how you win. It's far more difficult you have to go to all of these individual states and you have to win an entire state.
Well, he kept going back to Michigan, and how he flipped Michigan. The RNC woman was like, just keep coming back. Just keep coming back.
Right.
And
campaigning actually works, and they act like it doesn't. Like you have to have a strategy.
He got the 1 point from Maine.
I know.
So funny. All right, so here he goes in and digs into Ilhan Omar, which I know that Tucker Carlson had to take a vacation because he talked too much about
Ilhan Omar.
This is great. Did Holly go outside?
I don't think so. I don't know. I can look. Yeah.
You people. I know you people. I know the people of Minnesota. And I want to tell you, and I also at the same time, it's both a question and a statement. How the hell did that ever happen? How did it happen? How did it happen? Congresswoman Omar is an America-hating socialist. She minimized the September 11th attack on our homeland.
On our homeland, not ours. Just saying.
Where far more than 3,000 people died, saying some people did something. Big deal. Some people did something.
Now this is in his speech, so
she
he
for
gives it life
for
when
ISIS
he reads
recruits
it.
Right here in Minnesota. Omar laughed that Americans speak of Al-Qaeda. Remember that tape? Speak of Al-Qaeda.
He even has her inflection.
But when we say
stay. You're fine.
But when we say something about the United States, you just don't say America with any intensity. Remember that?
Yes, I remember it.
Representative Omar has a history of launching virulent anti-Semitic screeds, whether you like it or not. She said the U.S. support for Israel is all about the Benjamins. She said that pro-Israel lawmakers have an allegiance to a foreign country. Omar wrote that Israel has hypnotized the world. May Allah awaken the people and help them to see the evil doings of Israel and the United States. How do you have such a person representing you in Minnesota? I'm very angry at you people right there. She is a disgrace to our country, and she is one of the big reasons that I'm going to win and the Republican Party is going to win Minnesota in 13 months.
Wow, he just said that.
And it's actually true. She is one of the reasons.
People are so fed up, and you actually missed how he was like, he calls them AOC +3. And it's just hilarious. Like, that's what I call them, AOC +3. And they are shooting themselves in the foot. And I was joking with Horatio, our UK correspondent today, because he thinks it's going to be Ivanka that runs next. And we've talked about this ad nauseum. It's not going to be Ivanka. Here in the United States, all the conservatives love Don Jr., okay? Then we have Eric that could run. And then I think that Ivanka is kind of a globalist because she's married to one. But you know what? Maybe Barron Trump wants to run at some point. I mean, he could be an adorable. I'm just saying, and I don't think it's going to be this Trump dynasty. But what I do believe is going to happen is it's going to be a liberty dynasty. We're going to have a liberty dynasty, and it's almost like when the Red Sox didn't win for like ever. They're going to have this. The Democrat Party is going to have the longest losing streak because they are a party divided of socialists and just standard age-old Democrats, and they keep pushing these.
Here's the thing.
These crazies forward. Nobody wants them.
They ran their establishment person, Hillary, and the progressives hate her.
Yeah.
And hate the establishment. Right. They're going to run their progressive, and the establishment won't be able to vote for the progressive.
Losing streak.
They're a divided party. No,
but what they
right.
will is they'll vote for their own. I'm not saying they're going to swing Trump. But what they will do is they'll divide their own votes. That's why nobody wants the Brexit party. Not nobody. That's why the left doesn't want the Brexit party. And that's actually why a lot of the people, even on the right, don't want the Brexit party, because they're saying, listen, you're going to divide our own votes. That's what I meant to say. The people on the right don't want the Brexit party because the conservatives are like, listen, we need to stick together. You should have stayed with UKIP. We need to, and then before UKIP, they were like, don't have UKIP because it divides. Anytime you have people on one side splitting their votes, the other side is totally going to win.
Yeah, except
and I think that's what's going to happen every single time. Well, it's different because they have a parliament, and we just have, you know what I mean? It's just different. But I'm just saying, this is wonderful news.
Well, what's different is that the Brexit party,
Liberty Dynasty,
bringing together
hashtag Liberty Dynasty.
So what's different in the UK is that the Brexit party is actually a larger umbrella. So it's bringing the disenfranchised socialist and conservatives together under one umbrella. All right, so here
comes Patriot Gallery. Every single time. It's different because they have a parliament. Oh darn! Shoot, we said all that with double audio. Well, that stinks.
It was quiet. It wasn't loud.
Okay, sorry about that.
Okay, so this is one of the other amazing parts of Trump when he talks about Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. He does say kind of a swear word here, so cover your ears.
These aren't the same Chinese negotiators that I'm dealing with, I can tell you. These are not the same ones, but we are doing very well in that negotiation. Now think of it. Where's Hunter? Okay, get it. So where is Hunter? I want to see Hunter ask these questions. Hunter, you know nothing about energy. You know nothing about China. You know nothing about anything, frankly. Hunter, you're a loser. Why did you get $1.5 billion, Hunter?
Yep, he did just say that. Hunter, you're a loser.
And your father was never considered smart. He was never considered a good senator. He was only a good vice president because he understood how to kiss Barack Obama's ass.
The whole stadium just died. Look at, I've never seen it.
I just died.
The whole
speech
night.
Is literally off the chain.
It's true, he says, it's true. This is not your normal Trump rally. There was something, and I have to tell you, I know, Leah, how can that be anointed? It was anointed. I did press it. It didn't like me to pressing it.
How can it be anointed if President Trump is making fun of people and cursing? I think that you have to look beyond that. Obviously, the Holy Spirit did not condone the curse words, but I'm telling you, the essence behind, it's kind of like speaking a different language.
Yeah.
Okay, the essence behind what he's saying is the whole, and what was so interesting is my mom's like, hey, Trump's going to have a rally. It's going to be great. And it could be something really cool because even Alex is going to cover it and he doesn't really cover rallies anymore. And I was like, meh. And so we had finished watching Tucker and Tucker literally said, we've been covering rallies all these years, Trump rallies, and this one promises to be the most newsworthy. And I was like, well, Tucker says so.
I think the script
maybe they had
leaked.
I
think he read the script.
Okay, but the script is epic. But it's Trump's delivery that literally makes it epic. But you're right.
You and I couldn't deliver that like that.
I would have just been reading it. I would have been laughing. Who wrote this speech? You had to have practiced it, so too, right? 20,000 people. They broke a record.
That's what I wanted to show you.
And 20 more thousand people outside of the. He said something like 100,000 people wanted to come, which is amazing for Minnesota.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah. Yeah, he's packing them. You know what he says? I could tell you all the funny things he said because I tweeted out all the funny stuff I could on my Twitter. But he said, the Democrats had to have Beyonce and Jay-Z come in. They'd sing a couple songs and they would leave and the rest would leave. He's like, we have sellout. We pack the house everywhere
and I don't need a guitar.
And I don't need
a guitar. And he goes, is there any place more fun than a Trump rally. That you can have more fun than it. And the whole crowd erupted.
That one was just funny. That one was just funny.
The entire speech, I kept watching. There were about 5 or 6 people behind Trump that were epic to watch their facial expressions. They could not stop laughing.
I don't want to be the Secret Service, though, in those buildings because it's tight quarters. People are just kind of a little cray-cray as it is. All right, so now, as promised... Well, no, we're going to go to a Trump supporter, then we're going to go to the protesters because it was something out of a zombie apocalypse movie, you guys. You're not going to believe this. But this is Ramon, who says that he is registering 15 people a day to vote for Donald Trump. Is his goal.
Nope. First president in the history of this since I've been living, that made no bad moves against African Americans, and he gets no credit, and it makes me feel bad. So
that's good.
I decided, to do anything I can to help him out, to get African American votes or whatever I can do, to show that Trump is not a racist and he's not the bad person that the media makes him out to be.
So he's delivered for the black community.
100%. He's done a lot.
Do you think he'll win more of the African American vote this time than he did in 16?
Oh yeah,
for sure, 100%.
We've got Blexit from Candace
Owens.
Owens.
People in Minnesota,
people
maybe
daily.
They're changing their vote. They're supporting the president.
Yes, I do. I also do voter registration here in Minnesota, and I've got a lot of African Americans signed up to vote, and I'm sure he'll have a lot of African American votes here in Minnesota.
Well, we appreciate your support. Thank you for volunteering. I know the president appreciates it, and I hope you...
All right, so that...
So, is it steel in Minnesota or coal?
It's just, there's mining in the...
Mining, that's what I
north.
thought.
There's all the different kinds of things that are being mined.
Trump is going to get those Democrat votes. He's literally going to get them.
Yeah.
And they've done interviews of people in Minnesota, and they're like, listen, I voted Democrat, but he's for us. He's for the miners.
Yeah.
I'm going to vote for Trump.
Yeah. No, definitely. All right, so let's go on. You've got to see some of these. Okay, so here we have protesters gluing their hands to the pavement. Now, there was a climate protest and there was an anti-Trump protest.
Okay.
This, I think, is the climate protest.
Okay, but will your hand... I don't think your hands will stick to pavement.
She can't get her hand off. So she super glued her hand. No one's going to get me.
So it will stick to pavement. That's interesting. Who knew? You learn something new every day.
Here we have, and this was from Vice News. They did go ahead and air this. They're trying to interview a Trump supporter, and he gets spat on in the face.
In 2016, something that the president was really proud of in his campaign was that it was self-funded and that he had a lot of small...
Oh, nice.
I'm so sorry. Are you okay?
What's wrong? I'm fine.
Is that spit?
Are you serious? I'm fine. Sorry. I'm sorry that happened.
It's not how it really, that's not how people really feel. That is fucking disrespectful. But on the other hand, that shit is disrespectful as fuck too.
Sorry.
So there's a difference.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I respect your opinion.
I didn't do that. That wasn't me. I was just trying to take a picture.
That's all right.
You have a better attitude about that than
Well, I'm telling you,
Does that surprise you?
Oh, that did surprise me a little bit.
Wow.
And Vice News went ahead and put that out. Kudos to them. And pretty crazy there, but the way he handled it was epic and was really really well done on his part. Somebody comes and spits in your face. You just never know what's in their mouth.
Like diseases and stuff.
Yeah.
That can get in your eye. And
so here we have anti-Trump protesters in Minnesota stole about 40 hats off the heads of Trump supporters and then lit them on fire at the Trump rally. They then left ashes as a vigil against fascism, leaving an F Trump sign on the top of the pile. This is the left. this is tolerance.
Did they come back to clean it up?
Guys, so what happened here is some hats were stolen and burned from people who came down and basically snatched them off Trump supporters, and then they let it fire and kind of burned them all together. It's pretty crazy.
So, oh my gosh. Yeah, it was madness. It was madness. Let's see. Where's another?
And that's another thing, though. I think to talk about how big of a deal it is. It's one thing to go to the states where you know you're going to be well received, but for Trump to go into the lion's den where he knows that these kinds of things are going to happen.
Well, in Minneapolis especially, it's a huge leftist city. Like,
right.
Huge. Like, you're
and
getting...
the fact that many people still showed up, still went through the gauntlet to get there.
Right. So, Andy Nago says, as in Portland, San Jose, etc., what happened in Minneapolis last night shows how far-left rioters seek out and chase down outnumbered Trump supporters trying to leave. Antifa calls oppositional words and ideas violent so they can respond with violence. They say words are violent, so they say they can respond with violence.
To legitimize it.
So they chase down this older man. Just...
Oh my gosh. Wow.
I know.
That's unbelievable.
Oh, there's more. And get this. This is the new Democrat Party. Lawless, unhinged, and increasingly violent. Imagine if these rioters were wearing MAGA hats. You wouldn't hear the end of it. You hear about day in and day out. Trump's whole campaign would just stop. You know what I mean? The media would correctly label them as domestic terrorists. This is the leftists attacking police on horses. I believe they got water cannon as well. Wow. Now, Minneapolis is home to a lot of colleges, and a lot of these are leftist, like rich kids.
Right.
A lot of arts colleges, things like that. They would not allow the police to get through on their horses.
Nathan says he isn't playing easy by just going where he's liked. Exactly.
The damaging of the horses. Why would you hurt a horse? You know what I mean? Like, how would you like to be that police officer surrounded by an angry mob yelling at you? Is this America? This is total insanity. This is anarchy. These people should all have been arrested. If I don't pull over for a cop in my car, I can be arrested.
Yeah.
If you step in front of a police officer to stop them from moving, bam, you should be on the floor and be arrested and put in jail.
I agree.
If you're causing this kind of mayhem...
But listen, these cops were told that they can't show up to the Trump rally in uniform, even though they were allowed to do so for Obama.
Yes.
By this sick mayor. And I can say sick because Trump kept calling them, there's sick people, sick people. And so the orders that these cops get come straight from the mayor. And I'm going to guarantee you that these cops were told to stand down.
So these are more protesters. I'm afraid of these ones even more so, I think, because I think that they're on drugs. So they all decided to listen to their own music and dance to it.
What is happening right now?
She doesn't even have any music. I don't think she has any music either.
Okay, but you're saying that these people scare you. This is beautiful to me. Could more of you come out and be these protesters? Because it does two things. It keeps things safe. I feel that these people are safe to an extent. And it also gives everybody a good and clear understanding of your mental capacity on your side of protesting. We don't have to explain further. We literally need to make no comment about this. Everyone can see. I think it's great.
I don't even know how this is a protest, but
Eric says that's what happens when you drink too much Starbucks.
Yeah, I guess so. All right, so we're going to move on to a little bit of the Democrat town hall last night, the LGBTQ.
Right.
There was an article, maybe Michelle, you can bring up. I shared it on Facebook. She's from a feminist talking about this, and her words were quite possibly the best about what's happening to children.
On your Facebook or on Resistance Chicks?
On Resistance Chicks.
Okay.
So this person says, this is child abuse. Your kid says they want to start shooting heroin. You're going to call a dealer. Your kid says that they want to take a fifth of Henny to the head. You're going to go to the liquor store. And here is a 9-year-old saying that they are going to transition, or they're transitioning, or whatever they're doing to themselves. That's
is this one it?
Yeah, and you can bring it up. Maybe you can scroll through and read a little bit of it.
Transgender youth and active with the Human Rights Campaign. Jacob and his mom, Mimi, who's an advocate for transgender youth and active with the Human Rights Campaign.
So she was already an activist, and suddenly her daughter becomes a dude.
Right.
And she's proud.
Mm-hmm.
Jacob is an elementary school student from Massachusetts, likes to play hockey. Jacob.
All right, Jacob.
My name is Jacob, and I'm a 9-year-old transgender American. My question is...
All right, Jacob. Hold on.
What will you do in your first week as president to make sure that kids like me feel safer in schools? And what do you think schools need to do better to make sure that I don't have to worry about anything but my homework?
Oh, I like that question, Jacob.
Okay, this is, go ahead, bring up the article, because maybe if I read it from a world-renowned feminist, then maybe you won't think I'm hateful.
Okay. Do you want me to read it?
Ahead, this is Camille Paglia. She is a professor of humanities and media studies at the University of Arts in Philadelphia. She's a well-known feminist. She offered her remarks on Tuesday's edition of Dennis Prager's, how do you even say that?
Eponymous
radio show while discussing her latest book, Provocations, Collective Essays on Art, Feminism, Politics, Sex, and Education. What's very interesting to me is she says that in the article, and I can kind of just skim it because I read it, or just tell you, go over. She says that she never felt like a woman or a female.
Right.
And if this nonsense, she kind of calls it, had been around, she would have just really been forever messed up. Mm-hmm. But she wrote this book in which she questioned her own kind of gender, and it was kind of like, she kind of was figuring things out in her 20s. But if somebody had started to fill her with hormones and things like that, what would have happened to her?
She says, I think that experiments of unproven drug protocols on children is a crime against humanity, and it should not be tolerated. It amazes me there is hardly any media attention to this matter. I think the future will look back with surprise and shock at the ethical indifference of the major media right now in the United States to this going on. It is simply not right. These drugs have not been fully tested, and we're using children as experiments. Boys forever are going to have, in adulthood, a child-sized penis. I cannot believe that this is happening without protest.
And then go ahead, read the next line.
Don't imagine that the child knows his or her future identity at age 3 or 10 for that matter. Flash freezing a child's development through the introduction of drugs, pre-puberty on and so on, seems to me should be recognizably not just wrong, but horrific.
And then go ahead.
This one right here.
Read
she says, Paglia reflected on her own gender dysphoria on how her maturation may have unfolded differently had she been exposed to ubiquitous contemporary left-wing characterizations of sex as a purely social construct. If all this was in the air when I was young, I would have become absolutely convinced that I was really a man. And I think I would have probably been vulnerable to that fantasy until my mid-20s, probably. And completing my massive 700-page book, Sexual Persona, in a sense exercised that, meaning to cast it out. Right from the start in 1990, I was describing that book as a transgender construction. It's a voice. It's an other self. I've never felt female, but I don't feel male either. I would have been obsessed.
She says, I feel like she said she can say that prescribing puberty blockers to children is a violation of human rights.
I could not agree more.
And
that is so well said.
I think that, number one, we don't know what's happening with these puberty blockers. Number two, a boy does not know what it means to be a man or to do things with his manhood until it's fully developed. And so when you take that away, then you're really going to mess with his head. The same things with females. If you flood them with testosterone, they're not, and it's easier to detransition, I think, from the male back to female.
Yeah.
But when you haven't gone, if you're a male and you transition to female, that's a whole nother crazy thing to try to detransition from. You're like forever scarred. You know, it's really I think sad, it's actually. Child abuse, definitely.
It is child abuse. It's total child abuse. And these people don't care that they are experimenting on children.
So, Beto O'Rourke last night said that he would take away tax-exempt status from any church who does not believe in same-sex marriage.
Do you think religious institutions like colleges, churches, charities, should they lose their tax-exempt status if they oppose same-sex marriage?
Yes.
He is so very evil. Like, it's hard to quantify Beto O'Rourke. Okay? He is extreme. Like, he's a provocateur. Mm-hmm. You know, that's what he does. He's trying to make himself relevant by making himself irrelevant.
Okay,
irrelevant.
But at the same time, what this also shows me is not just a misunderstanding on Beto O'Rourke's part, but it's everyone. But as someone that's running for president, he should understand the laws of the 501c3.
Yeah.
And actually, it is a misnomer that churches can only talk about politics up to 5%. No church has ever been prosecuted for political speech. Ever. Okay. The law that was put in there, you have to go back and you have to look at it. You can go to David Barton and you can do your own research on this. But churches are actually exempt from not being able to talk about politics with their 501c3. Okay. And so he has zero understanding of what a 501c3 status is.
And he has zero understanding on freedom of religion in this country.
Right.
We have freedom of religion on purpose in this country.
Yeah.
And doing that would literally be government mandated religion.
Yeah.
The idea of separation of church, that is not separation of church and state. You know what I mean? Like,
well, separation of church and state was actually to keep the government from interfering with the church.
That's why I'm saying
and not the other way around.
That's why I'm saying that is actually separate. That is actually inclusion. That's the state telling a church what you can and cannot believe and teach.
Right.
It's absolutely insane. So I think I had a couple more craziness going on from that one. I know that Kamala Harris came out and said, well, I can just bring her up because and Chris Cuomo had to come out and apologize. So I'm just going to bring that up. Not woke enough. We're going to get Kamala Harris's genders up. I'm sure it's going to be the first one that comes up. Let's see.
I think that when we listen to these people, you have to understand that they literally don't know what they're talking about.
No.
It's not even just that they're evil and they're lying, and that is part of it, but they don't know the Constitution. They don't care. They just literally are wanting to make up laws and make up rules and say, well, this is what I believe is right, and so this is now going to become law.
Okay, listen to this.
Good to see you, Senator. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.
How are you? And
it's hard to watch her, isn't it?
And my pronouns are she, her, and hers.
She, her, and her.
It's embarrassing.
All right.
All right. First question.
Okay,
so he says mine too.
So that kind of sounds like it's making fun of it, though.
He had to apologize. He had to come out and say I was insensitive.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not even kidding you.
Oh my gosh. Okay, but I don't think that these people quite get how condescending it is for her to come out and say that. Okay? I mean, it's just so like, I'm going to do this for you little people. Watch what I do for you. Let me sprinkle my little magic fairy dust, and all of a sudden you're going to think that I care about you.
Okay, so not only can you not misgender somebody, but if you mispronounce their name, that is violence.
It's violence.
Yeah.
And next, Secretary Castro, I want to bring in Shay Diamond, a singer-songwriter from Los Angeles. She currently supports Mayor Pete Buttigieg. Shay, what's your question?
It's Shea Diamond.
Shea Diamond.
Put that on the record.
Okay. It's on the record. Thank you.
Yes, honey. It's violence to misgender or to alter a name of a trans person. So let's always get that right first.
Oh my goodness.
Or it's violence to alter the name of a trans person. So get that right first.
Okay, so, but what if you're reading the name for a first time and...
It's Shea Diamond. Put that on record.
Okay, but that's a really ingenious name for a transgender. Because Shea Diamond.
I know.
That is just epic. That's like a license plate, like a vanity license plate that you thought up. That was really great.
Yep, definitely. All right, so we're going to move on a little bit here. I think somebody actually put together I didn't brought this up. I think somebody put together all of Trump's funny moments. I think we kind of
did they really though? Because that could be really fun.
We did. I think we played most of them.
Are you sure?
Let's see.
How long is it? That looks long. That's the whole rally.
No, it was
started 2 hours. It's like 5 minutes.
All right,
5 hours long.
Okay, so we're okay.
If you missed Trump's rally, just literally watch it from start to finish. Just go find it and watch it when you're done here. Go find it and watch it from start to finish. It really was epic. It was pure comedy gold. He is a stand-up comedian, and who knew?
Shepard Smith is out at Fox News. Now he hated Trump so much.
Who are we gonna have that deep?
But what I love is that the Daily Mail has it out. So breaking. Shepard Smith is out at Fox News effectively immediately after being with the network since its inception in 1996. Shepard Smith is leaving Fox News after joining the network in 1996. He announced on Friday. This comes just 18 months after Smith signed a multi-year deal with the network. He was brought in to audition for a spot on the cable news network after Roger Ailes saw his coverage for Fox affiliates during the O.J. Simpson trial. The sudden move comes after the anchor was both praised and derided over the past 3 years for his criticism of President Donald Trump. When asked about Smith's departure on Friday by the Daily Mail, President Trump said, "Is he leaving because of bad ratings? Is he leaving because of me?" He was 55, said that he was looking forward to spending more time with his partner and their dog. His partner's 31, he's 55. Multiple sources told Daily Mail that Smith's departure was a complete surprise to employees at the network, and he was escorted out. That's what I want to get to. You don't escort somebody out unless you've been fired. You don't say, Hang
on, though. You don't just escort somebody out just because they were fired either, though. You only escort somebody out if, like, you're afraid that they're going to, like, steal something or they've caused a scene or something. But let's point out, hang on one more time.
And his assistant has deleted their LinkedIn profile.
Okay, so I'm not going to be here to judge heterosexual marriages, but I am going to point out that when you see in homosexual couples someone who is 55 with somebody that is 31, it just goes to lend itself to the predominantly desired father figure and pedophilia relationships that are in male homosexual relationships. You find it all the time.
We're done. We're off the air.
What do you mean we're off the air?
That's going to be censored whenever we allow back on.
You know what? Oh, well. It was worth it.
Mr. President,
it's
you
true.
or your administration pressure Fox News to get rid of Shepard Smith? No, I don't know. Is he leaving? Oh, that's a shame. That I don't know. Wait, did I hear Shepard Smith is leaving? Is he leaving because of bad ratings? Now tell me, I don't know. He had terrible ratings. Is he leaving because of his ratings? I mean, if he's leaving, I assume he's leaving because he had bad ratings. He had the worst ratings on Fox, so there's a reason. Why is Shepard Smith leaving? Well, I wish him well. I wish Shepard Smith well.
He is the iconic. He is the iconic politician. He always knows how to turn it around, which the rest of us do not. I loved this video here from Ron Paul because Ron Paul has been really harsh on Trump, and we're going to talk about Syria here because Trump's speech, and I think I should bring up that clip there, but I want to play this first. I think from Ron Paul. Trump is not being treated fairly, to say the least, and I'm glad that Ron Paul is kind of calling this out.
Trump cannot depend on the media. I think he sort of annoys them a little bit, and they don't like him very well. So they're not going to report the truth. But what'll be interesting, Trump can be on the internet, but that doesn't mean that he's going to reach all the people that he has to reach. He has a lot of money in the bank, money that he's collected fair and square, and he needs to get this message out. Now, he can buy ads, and my advice would be spend some of this and get the message out telling the truth. I think most Americans are probably sick and tired of all this, and they want to go on to the election or something like that. But I think they're also interested in the truth, and that is that they shouldn't have anonymous challengers to do this. They want a fair hearing, and right now this is not a fair hearing, and I don't know if I have the right or so to tell Trump what to do, because I think he knows what to do. But he needs to get the message out and work on this. He's already mentioned about he ought to have the right to face his accusers.
Yep.
You know, you could spend all day just telling people that because they're going to agree to that. So I think a simple, clear message of honesty and a fair trial and get ability where the president can face his accusers would go a long way to telling what the principles ought to be, and it might settle the score. And the worst demagoguery, and I've mentioned this before, is when you get a person like Pelosi getting up and with tears in her eyes, I don't really want to have to do this, but I think so much about my Constitution and freedom and justice, I'm going to have to press charges to get rid of this individual, this president. That's pretty bad. So we're working on the idea that truth wins out in the end, and that's what our goal is, because I do believe and have a lot of faith in the American people that they like peace and they like liberty. They just have to have it offered up, and they have to have a reason to reject so much of the nonsense that they hear.
That's a good point. So I have a couple thoughts on that, but first, Patriot Gathering says that Ron Paul is in the new blog. Mm-hmm. That would be on www.resistancechicks.blogspot.com. Mm-hmm. I had to think about that for a second. But when he was, he's talking about Trump's right to face his accusers. That is critical. They're trying to tell Trump that he, not only does he have to cooperate with this, whatever investigation that they're doing, but they're not going to let Trump investigate any of the accusers. Now, I don't know if we have covered or not the fact that it was breaking last night. I think Hannity was going to break it, but he didn't get a chance to. That this whistleblower worked with Joe Biden and flew on the plane with him at least one time to Ukraine. This is the whistleblower that Trump's not supposed to be able to face. Now, one more thing I want to hit on is the ads that he mentioned. I think it was talked about on Fox yesterday or the day before that Trump has raised like more money, I think, almost than any politician ever this early on, meaning, okay, not like ever, but this early on in his campaign. Now, what's so beautiful about that is that Trump is going to be able to, and Trump, I think, actually mentioned it, that they're going to be putting a lot of ads out. Fortunately or unfortunately, fortunately for us, the American people are very, very impressionable. If you see a commercial for Burger King, you want a Whopper. When you listen to things that are on the television, you believe them that they're true just because you heard it come out of the speaker. So the more ads that Trump can put out, he is going to literally wipe the floor with these people because he has more support this early on than any presidential candidate has ever had. Right. Incumbent or not. Right. You know, people were like really in the middle with Obama. A lot of people that voted for him for his second term, they were like, I'm not really sure. They were kind of on the fence. The same exact thing with Clinton. Trump's base has gone nowhere, and it's actually expanding thanks to Candace Owens and Blexit and, what's his name? And the Walk Away movement. The Walk Away campaign. What is his name? It's killing me. Brandon Straka. So this should be epic. With when Ron Paul's talking about all this money that he has, Trump is going to be putting these ads out.
Oh, I'm sure of it. I'm not sure if this is the right clip, but when he talks about Syria, he's explaining his pull out from Syria.
Phone call as an example with the president of Ukraine was perfect. Everybody that looked at it, and the only reason I released it was that the Democrats put out a phony narrative. So I had no choice. And I don't want to do that as president. Every time a president from a country calls me or I call them, we have to release the text. How can you do business that way? Who's going to want to speak to your president? So now the Democrats are making a pathetic bid to save Sleepy Joe. Sleepy Joe Biden. He was only a good vice president because he understood how to kiss Barack Obama's ass.
Bleep. That was my bleeping.
Congresswoman Omar is an America-hating socialist.
So these are the highlights.
She minimized the September 11th attack on our homeland, where far more than 3,000 people died, saying some people did something. Big deal. Some people did something. Representative Omar has a history of launching virulent anti-Semitic screeds, whether you like it or not. So in the case of Turkey and Syria and the Kurds, we could send in 1,000 troops for a military conflict with Turkey. No, you don't want to do that. We could hit Turkey very hard financially. Or we could mediate a deal between Turkey and the Kurds. I like that. You know, let's mediate a deal. We were supposed to be in Syria for 30 days. We've now been there for 10 years.
It's incredible.
We were supposed to be in Afghanistan for a short period of time. We're now going to be there for close to 19 years. It's time to bring them home.
I love that part. It is time to bring him home. Oh my gosh. Like, that's a no-brainer for me. Oh, did they have... Shoot. I wish you had the clip right before that. Where, and maybe I'll just tell you, but I'm not going to give you the emotional response that I had. Trump went into deep detail describing what happens when these young men and service women that have given their lives on the battlefield, when they come home in the coffin with the flags draped over them, he's been there and he sees these parents. And he was talking, I don't remember who he was talking to, who had brought him there for the first time. And he's like, listen, you're not ready for what's going to happen, because it's what happens to these people. They may be fine until that coffin comes, and they literally lose their mind because that's their son and that's their daughter in that coffin. Okay. And we're just talking about lives that are actually lost. Not to mention the maimed, people that have lost limbs or are injured or have PTSD. Their lives are irrevocably changed. Do you know how many divorces happen after somebody comes back from fighting in a war currently? It's horrific. And so Trump's like, listen, it's the hardest thing. We write these letters individually because I don't want it to be some blanket letter, because these families get together and they talk, and I don't want them to compare their letters and say, oh, we all got this like blanket cover letter. It is individually written because these people gave their lives. And Trump's like, and everybody's telling me to put more troops, to put more troops. Well, they're not the ones that are writing the letters. They're not the ones that are consoling the parents who have lost their children's lives. They're not the ones working at the VA, okay, dealing with these injuries and stuff.
I will tell you,
that's not the right one.
The hardest thing I have to do, by far,
he repeated himself at the rally.
Much harder than the witch hunt, is signing letters to parents of soldiers that
So he's explaining why he's kind of pulling our troops home.
Have been killed. And it's not only that, in areas where there's not a lot of upside, if there's any upside at all, and in many cases there's only downside. And especially when that soldier was killed in a blue-on-green attack. You know what that is, right? That's where a soldier being trained or whatever turns his gun on an American soldier. Here, son, take your gun. You know how to use it. And he takes the gun and he turns it and he shoots one. We have many of them in Afghanistan, in particular in Afghanistan. The hardest thing I have to do is signing those letters. That's the hardest thing I have to do. And each letter is different. We make each letter different. And last week I signed 5 of them for Afghanistan, 1 in Iraq, 1 in Syria from 2 weeks ago. And sometimes I call the parents. Sometimes I see the parents. I go to Dover when I can, but it's so devastating for the parents that, you know, it's so devastating. When they bring that boy or young woman out of the back of those big, powerful planes in a coffin, and the parents are there. You know, we have people that do that. That's what they do. They work that. They accommodate everybody. That's what they do. They do an incredible job. And I said, the parents seem to be okay. I'll get there early. The parents seem to be okay. Well, actually, sir, they aren't. No, the way they're talking, they're really okay, aren't they? Sir, you never know until the back of that massive cargo plane opens up and they walk down holding a coffin with 4 or 5 great soldiers on each side of it, representing our various forces. That you never know. And then I see it, and I see people that were smiling. Oh, Mr. President, thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. And I think they're doing great. And then 20 minutes later, we'll be outside when that big plane pulls up and that door comes down. And they are walking the coffin with their boy inside this coffin with an American flag over the top. And they're walking that coffin down this ramp. And I've seen people that I thought were really incredible the way they would. I didn't even understood how they could take it so well. Scream like I've never seen anything before. Sometimes they'll run to the coffin. They'll break through military barriers. They'll run to the coffin and jump on top of the coffin. Crying, mothers and wives crying desperately. And this is on these endless wars that just never stop. And there's a time and there's a place, but it's time to stop.
Thank you.
And just to finish, last Friday I went to Walter Reed and I gave out 5 Purple Hearts to incredible young men, in this case, all men. And they took a beating. Beautiful people, they took a beating. One couldn't be there because the beating was so great that he was at a totally different part of the world. He lost a leg, he lost an arm. Ryan, he had tremendous damage beyond even what these young folks went through. But I'll tell you what, for me, it's very hard when I see that. It's very hard. It's easy to talk tough, you know, tough guys, all these tough guys. Let's keep fighting, let's keep fighting. If they had to go to Walter Reed, where they do unbelievable work, I have to tell you, these doctors are unbelievable. You know, it's easy to say, oh, they're the best in the world. I've never seen anything like it. One young man last week had his nose rebuilt. And they said it was in 1,000 pieces. And I said, so where were you hurt? He said, my face, sir, was almost obliterated. I said, you have a better face than I do. He said, sir, I had a doctor who was unbelievable. And they put it together. He said 1,000 fragments. Now, I don't know if that's even possible, but 1,000 fragments. And they put it together. And his father, who was crying, came up to me and said, you're not going to believe this, but my son didn't have a great-looking nose, and now his nose is better. Okay, it's an amazing thing. But when you see these at the Purple Hearts, you see this kind of thing, and I see a lot of it at Walter Reed. And again, the job those doctors and the people do at Walter Reed, it's something to be commended. Thank you all very much.
So, go ahead. Well,
after I heard that story, because you're right, I gave the exact same thing last night, I'm like, this is a no-brainer. And it just goes to show, we hear all of this stuff from this woman right here, okay? And those like her on the left. Not one more school shooting. But you're sure fine if they make it out of school and they go over and you send them to Afghanistan for them to get blown to pieces. You're fine to send them over there. You're fine to kill them after they've gotten out of high school with you're so focused on gun control. No one should have a gun but the military. Nobody should. Well, you know what? Miss I am Native American. You didn't learn anything the last time the government had all the guns and your people that are not really your people didn't have guns.
So, and it's not just Elizabeth Warren, because what I want to explain to you is that they're called neocons for a reason. The John McCain's of this world.
They don't care about lives. They don't care about you. They don't care about your children.
Right, for the National Review. And this is actually a good article by Andrew McCarthy, who is a contributor to the National Review here. I think he's either a senator or representative. I'm not exactly. I don't know. But anyways, he's in their Congress, I believe. And anyways, the official National Review editorial said Trump's doing the wrong thing, that we're abandoning the Kurds. Now, I kind of explain this to you. The Kurdish people, they're kind of an ethnic group. They have their own sort of quasi-religion. And there are different groups of these Kurds, and they live in the contiguous area there with Turkey and Iran and in Syria. And they've kind of carved out a part of northern Syria for themselves. And we helped arm them so that they could help us fight ISIS. And we posted a lot of their videos because they're not Muslim, so the women fight. The Kurdish women have been stout fighters. But here's the thing: do we continue to fight now for them?
Right.
Against Turkey, and there's a gas pipeline. There's oil going through this northern region is the most plush, where all the crops are grown and where all the oil is. And so,
did you mention the fact that Turkey and the Kurds have been already fighting for 20 years?
They've already been fighting. They're always fighting. And is this our fight? And so,
when we talk about these soldiers dying, okay, like Trump just said, there's a time and a place.
Right.
When your son or daughter gives their life for us as our country, I am grateful, regardless of whether we're in there for the wrong reasons or whatever. Okay, that life was. I don't ever want to say that a life was in vain, okay? Because I think every parent deserves that feeling of my child died for something, okay? But for the next family member, let's make it so that they don't have to die.
Right, exactly. So I'm going to read this article here. We are grateful for the Kurds' help, and we should try to help them in return, but no one wants to risk war with Turkey. On Monday, President Trump announced that a contingent of fewer than 100, nobody was talking about that, U.S. troops in Syria would be moved away from the Kurdish-held territory on the border of Turkey. The move effectively green-lighted military operations by Turkey against the Kurds, which have now commenced. Some U.S. military officials went public with complaints about being blindsided. The policy cannot come as a surprise, though. The president has made no secret that he wants out of Syria, where we now have 1,000 troops, down from 2,000 last year. More broadly, he wants our forces out of the Middle East. He ran on that position.
And he's getting it done. He's one of the presidents that's literally do it. He sees something that needs doing, and he literally gets it done. That is Trump. He's a getter-doner.
As for Syria specifically, many of the president's advisors think we should stay, but he has not been persuaded. The president's announcement of the redeployment of the troops in Syria came on the heels of a phone conversation with Turkey's President Erdogan. This obviously was a mistake, given the appearance that Trump was taking cues from this Islamist strongman. As has become a rote, the inevitable criticism has followed by head-scratching tweets. The president vows to totally destroy and obliterate the economy of Turkey, which I've done before. It didn't really quite make sense. If Turkey takes any actions that I,
in my great and unmatched wisdom, consider to be off limits. I love Trump. Really I just love him. I love it.
He's like, if Turkey does, we're going to obliterate
He literally tweeted out, in my great and unmatched wisdom.
He did tweet that out.
He tweeted it out.
We can only sigh and say it will be interesting to see how the president backs up these haughty threats now that Erdogan has begun his invasion. All that said, the president at least has a cogent position. It makes sense. That is consistent with the Constitution and public opinion. We have never voted to start a war in Syria. He wants U.S. forces out of a conflict in which America's interests have never been clear. Okay, why? And for which Congress has never approved military intervention. I find this sensible, no surprise, given that this congressperson has opposed intervention in Syria from the start. The stringency of the counter arguments is matched only by their selectiveness in reciting relevant facts. McCarthy says President Trump, it says, is making a serious mistake by moving our forces away from what is described as Kurdish territory. The resulting invasion by superior Turkish forces will kill American allies while carving out a zone of dominance that will serve further to inflame and complicate the region. Where to begin? Here's the thing, guys. We technically are in NATO still, and Turkey is technically our ally. So you have allied by the Kurds helping you fight ISIS, but then you have a literal treaty with Turkey.
What to do?
So the basic fact is there is no Kurdish territory. It just does not exist. There is Syrian territory on Turkey's border that the Kurds are occupying, a situation that itself serves to inflame and complicate a region for reasons that he's going to talk about. I'm going to talk about. Ethnic Kurds don't have a state. They live in Syria, Turkey, Iraq, and Iran. Most are integrated into these countries, but many are separatists in their minds because they're not Islamists, okay? And many of them are Marxist-Leninists. The Kurds have been our allies against ISIS, but that is not why they fought with us. They fought for their own reasons, okay? They were not like, oh, I love the United States, I'm going to fight with you. They fight ISIS for themselves with our help. They are seeking an autonomous zone and ultimately statehood. The editorial from the National Review fails to note that the Kurds we have backed, led by the YPG, the People's Protection Units, are the Syrian branch of the PKK, which is the Kurdistan's Workers' Party in Turkey. The PKK is a militant separatist organization with Marxist-Lenin's roots. Although such informed observers as Michael Rubin contend that the PKK have evolved, it remains a formally designated foreign terrorist organization under U.S. laws.
Wow.
So while our government materially supports the PKK's Confederates, ordinary Americans have been prosecuted for materially supporting the PKK.
Wow.
So you and I help them, we get in trouble. The PKK has a long history of conducting terrorist attacks, but their quarrel is not with us. So why has our government designated them as terrorists? Because they have been fighting an insurgent war against Turkey for over 30 years. Turkey remains our NATO ally, even though Erdogan government is one of the more duplicitous and anti-Western actors in a region that teams with them. These militant Islamists. The Erdogan problem complicates but does not change the fact that Turkey is of great strategic significance to our security.
Isn't it Erdogan?
I think you can say it both ways. I've heard it both ways. Okay. While it is a longer discussion, I would be open to considering the removal of both the PKK from the terrorist list and Turkey from NATO. For now, though, the blunt facts are that the PKK is a terrorist organization and Turkey is our ally. Those are just facts. These are not technicalities. Contrary to the editorial suggestion, our government's machinations in Syria have not put just one of our allies in a bind. There are two allies in this equation, and our support for one has already vexed the other. The ramifications are serious, not least Turkey's continued lurch away from NATO and towards Moscow. Without any public debate, the Obama administration in 2014 insinuated our nation into the Kurdish-Turk conflict by arming the YPG. To be sure, our intentions were good. ISIS had besieged the city of Kobani in northern Syria. But Turkey understandably regards the YPG as a terrorist organization complicit in the PKK insurgency. That brings us to another non-technicality that nobody's talking about. Our intervention in Syria has never been authorized by Congress. Those of us, in this, as McCarthy says, who opposed the intervention maintained that congressional authorization was necessary because there was no imminent threat to our nation. Hello. Contrary to the editorial's suggestion, having U.S. forces deter further genocidal bloodshed in northern Syria is not a mission for which Americans support committing our men and women in uniform to. Such bloodlettings are the Muslim Middle East default condition, so the missions will never end. Okay?
So, and here's the thing. Let's remind everybody that Trump obliterated ISIS in this area. Okay? And it wasn't Trump. He didn't go over there. But the United States, we did. They're gone. It's done. What everybody kept trying to do and pretending to try to do for 10 years, Trump literally went in, gave them what they needed. Boom, it's done. So he's like, all right, got that done. Now we leave. We went to help obliterate ISIS. Okay, not we went, but listen, now we've given you these tools. You can take care of yourself. This is not our war. We do not fight other people's wars for them. And guess what? In the Middle East, they are going to continue to fight wars forever.
Right.
They just do.
A congressional debate should have been mandatory before we jumped into a multi-layered war featuring anti-American actors and shifting loyalties on both sides.
Yeah.
In fact, so complex is the situation that President Obama's initial goal was to oust Syria's Assad regime. Only later came the pivot to fighting terrorists, which actually helped Assad. That is Syria. Opposing one set of America's enemies only empowers another. More clear than what intervention would accomplish was the likelihood of becoming stuck in there in vicious conflicts of which we wanted no part, such as the notorious and long-standing conflict between the Turks and the Kurds. Barbaric jihadist groups such as ISIS, an offshoot of Al-Qaeda, came into existence because of Islamic fundamentalism. But saying so remains, you can't say that in Washington. Instead, we tell ourselves that terrorism emerges due to vacuums created by the absence of U.S. forces.
So it's our fault. If we're not everywhere in the world taking over, then it's our fault if ISIS rises up.
On this logic, there should always be and forever be U.S. forces and involvement in places where hostility to America vastly outweighs American interests. President Obama was wrongly blamed for creating ISIS by leaving a vacuum in Iraq. Couldn't it be the Shia supremacist culture, could it? No, we're supposed to suppose that this sort of thing could happen anywhere. So when Obama withdrew our forces from the region, as Trump is doing now, jihadist atrocities and territorial conquest ensued. Eventually, Obama decided that action needed to be taken. But invading with U.S. troops was not an option. It would have been deeply unpopular and undercut Obama's tout that Islamic militarism was on the wane. Our government therefore sought proxy forces. Most proved incompetent. The Kurds, however, are very capable. There was clamor on Capitol Hill to back them. We knew from the first, though, that supporting them was a time bomb. Turkey was never going to countenance a Kurdish autonomous zone led by the YPG and the PKK elements on its Syrian border. Ankara was already adamant that the PKK was using Kurdish autonomous zone in Iraq to encourage separatist uprisings in Turkey, where 20% of the population is Kurdish. Erdogan would never accept a similar arrangement in Syria. He would evict the YPG forcibly if it came to that. Yes, we had humanitarian reasons for arming the Kurds, but doing so undermined our anti-terrorism laws while giving Erdogan incentive to align with Russia and mend fences with Iran. ISIS, meanwhile, has never been defeated. It lost its territorial caliphate, but it was always more lethal as an underground terrorist organization than a quasi-sovereign struggling to hold territory. And Al-Qaeda, though rarely spoken over recent years, is growing, and it has been growing. Those of us who oppose the intervention in Syria wanted Congress to think through these quite predictable outcomes before authorizing any further U.S. military involvement in this wretched region. Congress, however, doesn't really think first. So they have the easily foreseeable conflict between Turkey and the Kurds is at hand. We are supposed to see the problem as Trump's abandoning U.S. commitments. But why did we make commitments to the Kurds that undermine pre-existing commitments to Turkey? The debate is strictly framed as, how can we leave the Kurds to the tender mercies of the Turks? No one is supposed to ask, what did we expect would happen when we backed a militant organization that is tightly linked to U.S. designated terrorists and that is the bitter enemy of a NATO ally we knew would not be able to abide its presence on the southern border? This sounds like a line from Princess Bride.
It does.
No one is supposed to ask, what is the end game here? What's end game? Obama's end game and Hillary Clinton's end game and the globalist end game was, just oust Assad and we're going to cut up Syria for everyone. That was why we were in there.
Right.
Okay? Oil and gas. Money, 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 money. Why do you think Biden's son is in the Ukraine? Oil and gas. Money, 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 money. Money, 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 money. Globalists thought they could get a piece of Syria for themselves. So, hey, we're just going to overthrow Assad. We're going to call him a brutal dictator, even though Erdogan is just as bad, if not worse, than Assad. And if we're just overthrowing brutal dictators, let's just have at it.
Yeah.
You know? So Did we see a Kurdish autonomous zone as the next Kosovo? And that didn't really work well.
No,
Kosovo split from Serbia over Russian objections, and then you have, Kremlin using it for the separation and the annexation of Georgia and Ukraine. It is true, as editors observe, that there are no easy answers in Syria. That is no excuse for offering an answer that makes no sense. That the United States should have an exit strategy, but one that neither squanders our tactical gains against ISIS nor exposes our allies to unacceptable retribution. So, President Trump has an exit strategy, which is to exit. He promises to cripple Turkey economically if the Kurds are harmed. If early reports of Turkey's military assault are accurate, the president will soon be put to this test, and I hope that he's up to it. For a change, he should have strong support from Congress, which is threatening heavy sanctions if Turkey routs the Kurds. Americans, however, are not of a mind to do more than that. We are grateful for what the Turks did in our mutual interest against ISIS, and we should try to help them, but no one wants to risk war with Turkey over it. And that's the bottom line.
We're not willing to risk war with Turkey over it.
No, we're not. And here we have a quick clip from Tucker Carlson with
Hi, how are you?
This is Colonel McGregor, and he says it even better than McCarthy, I think, here.
Colonel, what do you
turn this back on? And I'm sure Tucker will have awesome things to say tonight as well. Oh my gosh, I have a video to show you when this comes on after Rand Paul went on The View today.
I know, yeah.
Make of the response to the president's announcement?
Well, the swamp is clearly very disturbed because the president has done something that I have not witnessed in the last 30 years. He's actually injecting strategy back into American foreign and defense policy. Let me explain.
Go get her.
He's turned to Mr. Erdogan, who has been trying to carve out a portion of Syria now for a very long time. Remember, Mr. Erdogan is also partially responsible for standing up ISIS. Then ISIS turned out to be a Frankenstein's monster, and he decided it needed to be brought under control. Now he wants to resettle Sunni Arab refugees in northwestern Syria and create a kind of security zone for Turkish interests. But he's also simultaneously told Mr. Erdogan, you can do this, but now you are responsible for dealing with ISIS if ISIS rears its head. If it comes back, it's your problem. Now, this is a very important point. The president has shifted the burden of responsibility for something that is clearly regional, clearly goes back to Turkey, to Mr. Erdogan. At the same time, Russia has promised to maintain the territorial integrity of Syria, come what may. How is Russia going to deal with Mr. Erdogan, who has decided to carve out a piece of Syria for his own purposes? And then we have Iran. Iran wants to maintain its connectivity to Lebanon and its Shiite allies in that country. But with the Turks dominating northern Syria, Iran now is going to be unable, or at least will find it far, far more difficult to connect with Lebanon. The point is the president has checkmated all of the key players in the region in Syria. Now they must confront each other for a change.
But wait.
That is the best thing, and the president has checkmated every single one of these guys and said, you're going to have to face each other, because Russia has said we're going to remain, Syria's going to be all Syria, right? Okay.
And Turkey's trying to take a piece of Syria, so then Turkey's going to have to go head-to-head with Russia.
Russia and Turkey are supposedly making an alliance, and they are with Iran.
Right.
So all these people are trying to make alliances with each other, but then Russia has an alliance
with Syria,
and Russia's the strongest out of all of them, and so Russia's going to decide what's going to happen there. And I think that that's actually a good thing right now, because I think it's going to maintain peace. It's going to be awesome. Speaking of maintaining peace, we're going to come back over here to America. And this is Texas Sheriff on the criminal illegals. And I really like what he's saying here, because with the sanctuary cities, you're putting criminals back on the street to hurt people.
In Tarrant County, Texas, it's the 15th largest county in the nation. This morning we had 4,200 inmates. Out of that, 7% were illegal aliens, and they were being held for such offenses as murder, sexual assault of children. There was about 70 of them. And so, and there were robbers in there and kidnappers and people who committed arson and people who were DWI. And out of that, you know, you think about that, if we return them with this radical ruling out of California where you have a federal judge making law for the nation or attempting to, it will put our communities in jeopardy. Of those people that we have in custody, we know for a fact that 72% of them are repeat offenders. So if we have to turn them loose or they get released, they're coming back to your neighborhood and my neighborhood. These drunks will run over your children and they will run over my children. And if that happens, I know that you will want, and certainly I would want for you, the full force of the law.
Yeah.
And immigration is part of that full force. These people have come into the country illegally. And I understand that many of these migrants come across that river down there in Texas looking for a better day, for something better for their family. And I don't think anybody disagrees with that. But the problem is the very people that they were fleeing who preyed upon them came with them.
Wow.
And that's who we're trying to initially eliminate out of our country.
A good point. So, and I don't think anybody's worded it that way. You know what? That's fine that these people want to come, even if they're coming illegally. Let's deal with that later. But the problem is these good-hearted people that are fleeing, these awful, awful people are just bringing them right in with them. And so there has to be law, there has to be order, there has to be due process.
Right. So, speaking of law and order, what we have in California is this craziness. It's just absolutely insane. Dark shops, spotty phones, rotting fish, life in a mass blackout.
So hang on, let's explain what's happening.
So, I did in the beginning, but I'll re-explain it.
There's a lot of really bad fires in California. And
faced with mounting... go ahead.
Good, no, it's fine. Go ahead, read it. It's fine.
Faced with mounting public anger over massive blackouts, California Governor Gavin Newsom blasted PG&E Corporation for years of greed and mismanagement as the bankrupt utility restored power to more than half of those left in the dark. Newsom comments came as many PG&E customers questioned whether it overreacted to a windstorm that didn't prove as powerful in Northern California as forecast. The company cut electricity to more than 2 million people, the largest preemptive blackout in the state's history, to prevent the power lines from sparking wildfires. The Democrat governor, who on Wednesday called the blackouts appropriate under the circumstances, took a dramatically harsher tone Thursday, blaming PG&E for not hardening its grid and saying the outage was the result of years of bad choices. His comments came just before PG&E's chief executive officer made his first public appearance since the blackout began, apologizing to customers for hardship the power failures have caused while defending the decision. So here you have these most affected in Sacramento, Santa Rosa, and San Francisco. It's decisions that were not made that had led to this moment in PG&E's history, he says. This is not, from my perspective, a climate change story as much as a story about greed and mismanagement over the course of decades. By Friday morning, the company had restored power to 60% of its homes. The violent winds, meanwhile, are ebbing in Northern California. Still, fire risk remains high. So remember the wildfires last year. They were trying to stop the wildfires from sparking.
Like if a tree, it's a windstorm, and the trees fall on the power lines, and then they start wildfires. It's a real risk.
Right. But I've never heard of cutting power preemptively.
So, do you want to know my conspiracy theory on this?
Well, and here's the thing. Michelle and I always talk about this. It's like the biggest thing that's going to cause mass hysteria
is power
outage. I mean, it's power outage for
It's a way to control people.
Right.
When you can cause this kind of hysteria, because what happens when you take people's power from them, especially when they're so hooked to all of their electronics and so on and so forth, they're drug addicts. They will do anything to get their fix. They will sell their souls. They will sell their bodies. They will do whatever. Give me my power. Give me what I need. I will be a slave to the state. And so what California has done is they are positioning themselves to Cal-Exit. They're positioning themselves to kind of almost take on the federal government. You can't tell us what to do with what they're talking about with illegal immigrants. They want people to be dependent. They want to fill their entire state with them. So what I think is happening here is California is spinning out of control into pure chaos.
Yeah.
With the homeless on the streets, pooping in the streets, defecating in the streets. the rundown. They don't take care of their citizens in their cities. It's like, okay, you're supposed to be a socialist country. You're supposed to be, let's give all our money, and then you really take care of the people. You upkeep it. We have trash services. That's what happens when we see a lot of money going to the government here locally, you know. But that's not what you're seeing in California, because it's an age-old mind game where you just treat people like they are nothing, like they are dirt, like they are worthless, like they can't do for themselves. You degrade somebody. It's what you would do to them in a prison of war camp. Right. This is what they're doing to the entire state of California. It's all mind games. And so while they're playing that PG&E just did this because they don't have, what their excuse was, there wasn't enough upkeep on their utilities, and so if this were to happen, bad things would happen.
They had $30 billion in liabilities from the wildfires previously.
But I think it's more than that. I don't think that this was a business decision. I think that somehow, these guys were told to cut power to cause a panic in this moment.
And talking about panic, there was the main failure was communicating with customers about the outages. Company officials said, the utility posted outage maps with inconsistent or inaccurate information. Its website crashed and its call center was overwhelmed. So people could not, and they said, we failed our customers. If you're going to cut power to these millions of people, you got to be ready. You got to be on the ball. You know what I mean? People are freaking out.
But they didn't want to be ready.
Night before,
they didn't want to be on the ball. They want people freaking out.
And the night before they started the power outages, they held a wine tasting thing for its most valued customers.
You're kidding.
No. So
what qualifies you as a valued customer?
The more you pay to them.
Wi-Fi hotspot because the power's out, so we can't bring up anything out of inventory, and it creates a real loss of business for us. Our home is without power as well. I got a cooler full of ice this morning to pack all our refrigerated goods into.
So Jinx. When I was a kid, I remember there were power outages at the grocery store, and you could walk into the grocery store and the salespeople could literally sell you items if you had cash. And they would write it down. They literally would write it down and ring it up later. Okay, I remember going into Kroger. I remember where the scanner had the little crisscrossy thing, you know, for the UPC code. I remember that. I am that old.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. Now, if all sales stop, so if there's a power outage, it's not that the products aren't there. It's that they can't be sold because these businesses literally can't sell product without electricity. And so what it does is it turns people into looters, because there's people that are going to say, I need this, I need that, I have to have it. And so what happens when people have generators? What happens when you can't sell the gasoline because there's no power? This is literally to purely cause panic.
And I would think it's also, you know, if I'm going to go conspiracy theory, I would say that this is a test to see how people would react. So I want to read some of the reactions. I was showering late Wednesday, shampoo in my eyes, an American Horror Story playing on my phone so loud that my husband couldn't hear my shouts for a light. I had just become one of the millions of people who have lost power in the biggest orchestrated blackout in California history. And here I was excited about the ocean breeze scented candle I had bought a day earlier because flashlights were sold out, and it was that or orange ginger. Other thoughts that ran through my mind. It's a good thing I didn't start a load of laundry, and I'm going to miss the dishwasher. Curious, trivial, the first world problems you think of when you're facing an unprecedented shut-off amid the threat of deadly wildfires and the prospect of going powerless for as long as a week. Our home in the Oak Hills was originally among 250,000 properties in San Francisco's bedroom communities that were supposed to lose power at noontime on Wednesday, joining the 500,000 that had gone dark just after midnight. Then the winds blew in our favor, and bankrupt utility PG&E Corp changed its mind, delaying our cutoff to 8. I texted a friend at 10:30 to say our lights were still on, thinking maybe we were in the clear, and then it hit. And then she fell in the shower.
Hang on Twitter we have Focus Zone says, this power outage is a dry run training for bigger future outages in Homeland if the Homeland Secretary is involved.
Right. And the second thing you notice is the internet. I'm in charge of Bloomberg's coverage of the outages. And I had told my team that once the power went out, I'd conserve juice on my laptop and work by phone. No dice. I should have known. We live in the Bay Area and home of tech giants including Twitter, Facebook, and dare I say it, Bloomberg. Of course, powerless people would rush to their phones, overwhelming the LTE networks and crippling mobile data access to everyone. That was painful, she says. There's some irony in the team leader of power at Bloomberg News losing power. On Thursday morning, I managed to squeeze a few emails out of Verizon's hobbled network from home before signing off to tend to our 1-year-old daughter and make a trek into San Francisco. I walked into the nursery to find Sophie's hands and feet were freezing. So much for our natural gas fueled heating system. A frantic Google search tells me that while these systems indeed depend on gas, they're designed to automatically shut off during power outages. She passed by pharmacies, banks, a coffee shop, and several office buildings on her way to a bus stop in Oakland. At all dark, a Lucky supermarket was among the few with lights on, a trailer-sized backup generator parked in its lot. At a clearly powerless sushi restaurant, a man was unloading a box of fresh tuna to deliver. What are they going to do with that, I asked him. They don't even have power, he shrugged. They ordered it. A worker at the local donut shop greeted patrons with no coffee, just donuts. With the credit card machines down, I paid for my glazed twist with a $5 bill. It's all cash in the Bay Area. At the bus stop, a woman held hands with her elementary school-aged son. His school was among dozens shut off because of the blackouts. What are you going to do, I asked. What can I do? I'm bringing him to work. Her son then turned to me and said he gets to play video games all day. Lucky kid. The drive into San Francisco was like re-entering the real world, working traffic lights, heating and cooling, opening and bustling coffee shops. Lucky them, too. I took advantage of our office outlets to recharge my phone, watch, laptop, and then backup battery. And at the end of the day, I scooped it all up for the bus ride back into the darkness. A friend texted to say her power was back on in Cupertino, home of Apple. A colleague emailed to say hers was restored in Berkeley Hills, not hers. I crossed back into the no internet zone.
Oh my gosh.
My phone went silent. The bus driver turned to a woman lamenting the loss of hot water and said PG&E needs to be dissolved. I lit a candle at home and waited. We made plans to relocate a freezer full of breast milk for Sophie to a friend's place. I'm sure every nursing mother can feel me when I say my husband would have had to pry that milk stash from my cold dead hands before she parted with it. Before we could load the cooler, we noticed lights flashing outside our front window. It was the electric company, and then a light at the top of the pole flickered on. And here it is she heard her husband clapping. Now, remember, Michelle, if you can... Oh, and by the way, solar panels don't work in blackouts because they are mostly designed to feed into the power grid.
Exactly.
And unless you have a battery, a good Tesla battery, which I don't consider good, but you have to have a Tesla battery, which Thomas Massey does, you are...
SOL.
You're up a creek without a paddle.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you really wanted to say that.
Well, but I just gave the acronym there.
You didn't. Up a creek without a paddle is better.
Yeah.
A little bit more resistance shaky. Yeah. She didn't mean to say that, folks.
But here's it could happen. Something could happen where, this is a thing. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it is, whether it's, designed... I don't know, but the fact that people are so dependent and they don't know how to function, my big fear in a power outage isn't losing a freezer full of meat or something like that. I literally just worry about people on ventilators in hospitals.
Oh, yeah.
I don't care about myself. I don't care if I have to cook over a fire for a while or my whole freezer. Everything is replaceable but a life. And so the people that panic over these small things, she said, my toddler's hands and feet were cold at school. And I'm like, you live in California.
So why'd you leave them there?
It's not like it's snowing there.
But why did you leave them there?
Exactly.
Why would you leave your child at a daycare with no electricity?
Well, but I don't think she realized that was going to be a thing. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just saying our whole lives over the past 100 years have become something absurd and ridiculous in comparison to the last 8,000.
Yeah.
In comparison to the last 200 years.
Yeah, you used to have to worry about, roaring marauders, lions, tigers, and bears. Oh my.
If your crop was going to fail or not.
Fires, crop failures, wagon wheels breaking. If your cow was going to survive
giving birth to a calf. And now it's like, my iPhone, I can't shop, I can't, it's like, and I'm not saying that's, it's real. There are people that are literally dependent. We are all dependent on this. Yes, we would lose. We raise cooney pigs, and that's great, but we do store it in a freezer. Okay, we are all dependent on this system, and so I'm saying that the anger and the outrage shouldn't be in having lost power. It should be A, in how did we get here, but B, what somebody had said, what are we preparing for? What is this? This is, to me, it feels like it's psychological warfare here that's happening. To see what happens when we control people. It's a test run, it kind of felt like.
So Rand Paul went on The View, and this kind of does segue into a segment a little bit on socialism here, because he wrote a book and he really studied socialism. And they had Anna Navarro, who's supposedly a Republican, but she's not. And Rand Paul tries to talk about his book here, and listen.
You know, Bernie Sanders is no longer alone on the debate stage. It seems like we're hearing more and more about socialism. In fact, 43% of Americans think it's a good thing. You are on the complete other end of that. Tell us about this book.
Well, one of the things we learned in writing the book is a lot of people say, well, we're not for Stalin, we're not for Hitler, we're for Scandinavia. So as we were researching the book, we actually found that Bernie Sanders' form of socialism actually is unpopular, and he would never get elected to anything in Denmark. In fact, the Prime Minister of Denmark, when he heard Bernie was going around saying they were socialists, says, no, we're not socialists. We have private property, a stock exchange. We have low corporate income taxes. We don't have a minimum wage. And the big difference, and this is where the big lie comes from, Bernie says we're going to give you all this free stuff, but we're only going to tax the rich people. In Scandinavia, they tax the working class 25% sales tax, and an income tax starting at $60,000 is 60%. So really the difference between their country and our country is they do have more free stuff in Scandinavia, but they pay for it with massive taxes on the working class and the middle class.
So did you hear that? 60% income tax on $60,000.
And 25% sales tax. That's everyone.
25% sales tax.
That's
now,
everybody.
Listen to the audience here. Watch.
Taxes here, but we don't get any free stuff. We don't have free health.
We have paid massive taxes here, but we don't get any free stuff. Now, you guys, we do not. In a lot of states, like in Ohio, you don't pay tax on food here. Or what am I talking about? You tax on food. What's the excise tax? Not property tax, buying tax, whatever the tax is to buy things.
Tax.
Sales tax. Yeah. My brain wasn't working.
It happens to me all the time.
But she says, what she says here is so weird. She says we pay a lot of taxes, but he just said 60% on $60,000.
Healthcare, our public education system is a problem.
We have a different.
The only people that get free stuff are the very, very wealthy.
We have a different form of taxation in our country. Ours is much more progressive. So we've taken the poor off of the rolls. They don't pay income tax anymore. Most people below $50,000 don't pay any income tax. The top 1% in our country.
People are mumbling here. You guys, the poor in this country, I don't know what the number is exactly, but you don't start paying income tax. You do pay Medicare and Social Security tax.
Which is different.
And that's what they're thinking that they're paying. I know. And they're so ignorant that they don't know that they're paying Medicare and Social Security tax. And I think that Rand would have helped to say that to them, but they don't know that they're not paying it.
Pay 40%.
Our audience says that's not true.
Well,
and she doesn't know either. It's embarrassing.
The IRS statistics say that the top 1% in our country pay 40% of the income tax, and that those making less than $50,000.
Donald Trump doesn't pay any income tax.
Let me ask you this, because I live in Miami. There's tens of thousands of Venezuelan exiles living there. You talk a lot about Venezuela in your new book. I get a lot of political ads from the Republican Party. Donald Trump has tweeted this. Many have tweeted this. If you vote for Democrats, they will turn the United States into Venezuela. Do you think that's a fair statement to make?
Well, if you vote for a socialist, you might get socialism.
Come on, don't do that. Maduro is not a socialist. He's a corrupt, murderous thug who is starving his people.
That's not true.
That's not true? Maduro's not a thug and a murderer who's starving his people.
Let's have a conversation here. Chavez was a socialist, and socialism was the economic system of Venezuela.
It's a kleptocracy. It's not socialism.
But here's the question is, they voted for socialism. They voted for, let me finish.
No, I can't let you finish. If you're going to say Maduro's not a murderous thug, I'm not going to let you. Damn lie. And I've got a bunch of neighbors and friends who know this. Don't do this to me. Don't mansplain. I'm a 47-year-old virgin.
Thanks to Senator Rand Paul. His new book is called The Case Against Socialism, and we'll be right back.
Don't do this to me. Don't mansplain to me. Don't do this. If you're not going to say that Maduro is a dictator and he's a great man and I'm just going to come up here and talk like this into your face and I'm going to she-splain to you. Okay, I'm just going to she-splain to you. Okay.
Did anything that he said sound condescending to you? Like he was mansplaining something? No, he's an expert in his field and he is just literally explaining. So now if you're a man and you go to explain something to somebody from Venezuela, you're now mansplaining.
Well, she's not Venezuelan, but yeah.
Well, whatever she is. Don't
neighbors,
mansplain to me. I am a 47-year-old woman. Okay, you know what? He said, let's have a conversation. No, we cannot have that conversation.
Well, and she took his words out of context. And I think that it kind of explains itself, but because I want to hit this thing and then we kind of sign off. So Ben Shapiro, I'm not a big fan of Ben Shapiro, honestly. It's very interesting what he says here because Ben Shapiro warns that if politicians try to mandate the LGBTQ indoctrination at schools, that he will pick up a gun. Further adding, Beto O'Rourke does not get to raise my child, and if he tries, I will meet him at the door with a gun. Now, Beto O'Rourke is going super extreme to where if he, he would mandate LGBTQ indoctrination of your children, and maybe you can't homeschool, maybe you can't choose your own school. Losing your 501c3 status, a lot of these Christian schools would lose their tax exempt status. I mean, it's pretty crazy, but here we go.
In other words, if you're a church, you're not infringing on anybody's rights. You're just saying you can't come here for your marriage. Go to the church down the street. Go to a religious school. You're saying, listen, you want to learn about gay rights? Go to the public school down the street. You want to learn about gay rights? You can just go to that secular atheistic crossroads school in Santa Monica. Like, enjoy yourself. That's your problem. Oh, enjoy. Fine. You're not infringing on anybody. Your mere existence is an infringement, according to Beto O'Rourke. The institutional existence is an infringement on liberty, according to Beto O'Rourke, and you must be shut down. You want a culture war in this country? You damn well have it, Beto O'Rourke. You want a culture war in this country? You want this country to come apart if it seems this is how you do it. Because I promise you, if you come to tell me that you're going to indoctrinate my kids in particular policy, and that I can't pull my kid out of the school and send my kid to a school I want to send them to, that I can't go to the church or synagogue that I want to go to, and if you make that national policy, not just California policy where I can move, but national policy, people are not going to stand for that. They're not going to stand for that. If you send a truant officer to remove my child, I have two choices at that point, right? If I have no place to move because you've now made this national federal policy, I now have two choices. One is to leave the country utterly. Two is to pick up a gun. Those are the only choices that you have left me. And now people are like, oh, how could you say stuff like that? How could you be so extreme? It's not extreme to defend the fundamental rights the Constitution was created in order to protect. These rights pre-exist government. My right to raise my child in my faith is my right. It is a First Amendment right. There's only one reason the government exists, to protect those rights, not invade those rights. It is my right to raise my child with the moral precepts that I find to be beneficial for my child. Beto O'Rourke does not get to raise my child. If he tries, I will meet him at the door with a gun. That is insane. That is insane. If he tries to remove my child from my home, well, he's not suggesting that. Where do you think this goes? What do you think the next step is?
Where do you think it goes, and what do you think the next step is? And he's absolutely unequivocally right. And that's what Rand was trying to get to, and they cut him off. Oh, we don't have enough time. You know they have more time. They just literally go to cut somebody off when they know somebody's about to make a point that they don't want them to make. And that is the fact that what he said is these people voted in socialism. Okay.
Under Chavez.
And then they get dictatorship with it.
Right.
You really think that Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and Beto O'Rourke don't want to be your dictator?
Right.
They absolutely want to dictate your life. They want to become a thug. They are thugs. Thugs come and steal your ability to defend yourself.
And when you fight back, they take your weapons. And when they take your weapons, they put you in jail.
Right.
And then they harm you and they take your kids from you.
Right. And they censor you. They make sure that you can't speak out. That's what thugs do. And that's what socialism is. And that's what they want.
Yeah.
They want that.
They want the power.
And that's why they cut Rand off.
With AOC, and you see it with Bernie Sanders. And so we are literally at the precipice of of Americans who have been so brainwashed. And you know, you have to hand it to the communists who have been infiltrating public schools since the 1920s.
Yeah.
They have a full 25 or 30% of the country believing that the socialism is a good thing, that communism, which led to, you know, the deaths of over 100 million people, is actually a good thing. Right.
All right, so I think it's been a great show. If you missed the first half, it was hilarious, covering Trump's Minneapolis.
Just a minute.
We're almost finished here. Okay, we're almost finished. It was really, really fun, and I think that tonight was a great show. Good job, Leah. Well done. Join us back
the news
on
took care of itself.
Sunday at 1 p.m.
Thanks,
Eastern
Trump.
Standard Time for our European and UK news from around the world. Thank you to everybody that joined. Thank you to all of our moderators. We love you guys. Remember to send us your letters. We'll read them on air. P.O. Box 107, Milford, Ohio 45150. You can also find us on resistancechicks.com, Bitchute, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You know all the places you can get to us. So we love you guys. God loves you.
Do you want to read any comments before we sign off?
No song, Maia says. We did a whole thing. We did a whole sing.
We have a cousin's dog here tonight, and she's getting 60%. Casey Holmes says 60% of $60,000 is $36,000 in taxes.
Thank you for that. That's absolutely
Ben
ridiculous.
Shapiro is going all gangsta.
Yep.
Go scroll up just a little bit. I want to see if anybody's saying anything. Mom.
Britbot says, Michelle, the UK pays taxes on everything we do and buy, from income taxes, death taxes on everything, from food, clothes, cars, fuel, insurance, so on and so on and so on.
Mom says, Revolutionary War was over tax on gold and silver coins. Without gold and silver, the government owns you. The Federal Reserve owns you. Gold and silver coins. Then you are free. You have the protection of the Constitution. Jim West says, yep, Baza, that is why the left say the NHS is free health care, but it really is not.
Yep.
Wicked Sykes says, in my state, we pay sales tax, property tax, federal tax, state tax, excise tax, income tax, tax on any interest on saved money, and double income tax if you inherit money that was already taxed.
Well said.
Rand Paul was wasting time going on that. Denmark's
I don't know,
average...
because any publicity is good publicity. It'll get people to read the book, and then they might learn something.
Says Denmark average wage is 43,000. America's is more like 30,000.
Maia says it's 11% where she lives.
Wow. Says 24% VAT over here, 25% in Sweden. Yeah, UN Agenda 21, the removal of 80% of humans, etc. And Navarro is a Democrat. There you go. Connect your exercise bike to the freezer and get Kansas to pedal it to keep it powered. I notice they don't want people to have their own power in their home. They want you to need to purchase the power.
And that's really interesting, because all of these people that are selling these solar panels, like you said, it hooks you up to the grid and you don't have a battery. And so you are still up a creek without a paddle when the power goes out.
All right, guys. So, there we go. You guys are really doing a lot of good comments.
No, it was great.
Tonight.
And speaking of comments, we love it when you guys actually take all of your great comments. The more comments we get after the fact, not just in the live chat, but on the video, it puts our video out there better. Okay. So take all of your good comments, go and copy them, and put them on the video after it processes, please.
Yep, we love you guys. Thanks for being here.
Remember, it's not just a conspiracy theory if it's actually the truth. So, we love you, and we will see you back here on Sunday. Bye, guys.
I was cold.